She almost dropped the tray before she even understood why her hands were shaking. The cups rattled, metal kissing metal, a small sharp sound that did not belong in a house that quiet. Eliza stopped mid-step, breath caught halfway in her chest, and listened. There it was again. Slow. Heavy. A boot pressing down on old wood, somewhere behind her. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel. She didn't turn. Not yet. Her fingers tightened around the tray until her knuckles went pale. "Who's there?" she said, barely louder than a whisper. The house gave nothing back. No wind, no creak, no answer. Just stillness that felt wrong. Then another step. Closer this time. She swallowed hard and stared straight ahead at the narrow hallway, at the wall that held nothing but age and silence. "I said, who's there?" Her voice cracked a little. From down the hall, a door shifted open and boots stepped into view, real ones this time, carrying weight and dust and a man who filled space like it belonged to him. The sheriff leaned in the doorway, eyes narrowing at her stiff back. "You talking to ghosts again?" he said, dry and slow. Eliza didn't move. The tray trembled again. "I heard someone." The sheriff walked closer, his steps firm, deliberate, each one louder than the one she had heard before, but not the same. These were grounded. Alive. "You hear a lot of things," he said. "Doesn't make them real." She turned her head just enough to see him out of the corner of her eye. "They were right behind me." He glanced past her, down the empty stretch of hallway. Nothing there. Not a shadow out of place. "Looks empty to me." He stepped past her, brushing her shoulder just enough to make her flinch. "You're jumpy." "I'm not jumpy," she said quickly. "I know what I heard." He stopped walking but didn't turn back. "Then maybe you should learn to stop listening." His tone carried something sharp under it, something that made her chest tighten. He moved on without waiting for her answer, boots fading into another room, a door closing harder than it needed to. Eliza stayed where she was. The tray felt heavier now. Her arms ached but she didn't lower it. The hallway stretched out in front of her, unchanged, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like it was watching her. She took a slow breath and forced herself to move, one careful step forward, then another. The floor creaked under her weight, soft and familiar. Normal. She held on to that word like it might steady her. Normal. Then the sound came again. Behind her. Not the sheriff. Not anyone she could see. A single step. Then another. Slower than before. Closer than before. Her body went rigid. The tray slipped in her hands, cups clinking again, louder this time. "Stop it," she whispered, though she didn't know who she was speaking to. The footsteps didn't stop. They matched her breathing now, slow and drawn out, like something learning her rhythm. "You're not real," she said, louder, trying to make it true. Silence answered for a moment, stretching thin and tight. Then something softer slipped through it. Not a step. Not a creak. A voice. Small. Thin. Close enough to brush her ear without touching. "Eliza." Her breath broke. The tray tilted and she barely caught it before it crashed to the floor. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No one's there." Her eyes darted along the walls, searching for a source, for a trick, for anything that made sense. There was nothing. Just wood and shadow and the weight of being watched. "Eliza," the voice came again, clearer this time, not loud but certain. She spun around, fast, heart slamming hard against her ribs, ready to face whatever stood behind her. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. No figure, no movement, no sign of life. Just the long stretch of worn boards and quiet walls. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. "Show yourself," she said, the words coming out sharper now, edged with fear and something close to anger. "If you're there, show yourself." Nothing answered. Not even the sound of her own breath seemed steady anymore. It felt swallowed. The house pressed in around her, close and heavy, like it was holding its breath too. She turned back slowly, facing forward again, trying to ground herself, trying to remember where she was, who she was. Just a maid. Just a job. Just a house. Another step echoed behind her. Closer than anything before. So close she could feel it in the floor beneath her feet. Her body refused to move. Her hands went cold. "Don't," she whispered, though she didn't know what she was asking it not to do. The air shifted, subtle but real, like someone had leaned in just behind her shoulder. For a second, she thought she felt warmth there. Not much. Just enough to make her skin tighten. The voice came one last time, lower now, almost a breath against her neck. "Don't turn around." Her eyes widened, fixed on the wall in front of her. The tray slipped from her hands and this time she didn't catch it. It hit the floor hard, cups shattering, the sound breaking through the silence like something alive. She stood frozen, staring ahead, every part of her locked in place as the echo of that warning settled deep in her chest. And still, slowly, against everything in her body telling her not to, Eliza began to turn. Eliza turned and found nothing there. The hallway sat still, stretched and hollow, like it had never held a sound at all. Her chest heaved, breath uneven, eyes searching every inch behind her. No figure. No shadow out of place. Just emptiness that felt too clean. The tray slipped from her fingers and shattered against the floor, cups breaking sharp and loud, the sound snapping through the house. She flinched at the noise, stepping back fast. "No, no, I heard it," she muttered, voice shaking. Her gaze dropped to the broken pieces, then lifted again, slow and uncertain. The silence pressed harder now, like it was waiting for her to speak again. Footsteps did not return. That made it worse. A door slammed open somewhere down the hall and quick steps followed. Mrs. Hale appeared, her face tight, eyes cutting straight to the mess on the floor. "What did you do?" she snapped, voice sharp enough to sting. Eliza swallowed and pointed behind her without turning. "Someone was here." Mrs. Hale's eyes didn't follow her hand. They stayed on Eliza. "No one is here." "I heard boots," Eliza said, forcing the words out. "Heavy ones. Right behind me." Mrs. Hale stepped closer, skirts brushing the floor, her presence cold and stiff. "You hear too much," she said flatly. Eliza shook her head. "I know the difference between sound and silence." "Do you?" Mrs. Hale's tone dropped, softer now, but heavier. "Because this house has been quiet a long time." Eliza hesitated, then said, "Not tonight." Mrs. Hale bent down and picked up a broken cup, turning it slowly in her fingers. "Clumsy hands," she said. "Or nervous ones." "Wouldn't you be nervous?" Eliza shot back before she could stop herself. Mrs. Hale looked up, eyes narrowing just a little. "No," she said. "Because I don't imagine things." Eliza clenched her jaw. "I'm not imagining." "Then show me," Mrs. Hale said, rising to her full height. "Show me who walked behind you." Eliza turned again, slower this time, almost careful, as if something might be standing there now just to prove her wrong. The hallway stayed empty. The walls didn't move. The floor didn't creak. Nothing breathed. She lowered her hands slowly. "They were here," she said, quieter now. Mrs. Hale watched her for a long second. Something flickered across her face, quick and gone. "No one's worn boots in this house in years," she said. The words hung in the air longer than they should have. Eliza blinked. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Hale didn't answer right away. She stepped past Eliza, her gaze sliding down the hall as if checking it for herself. "I mean what I said," she replied finally. "This place doesn't carry that kind of noise anymore." Eliza's throat tightened. "Then who was walking?" Mrs. Hale's hand paused against the wall, fingers pressing into the wood just a little too firmly. "No one," she said. "And you'll do well to remember that." Eliza crouched down, starting to gather the broken pieces, her hands slower now, careful but unsteady. "Glass doesn't break on its own," she muttered. Mrs. Hale turned slightly. "Neither do people," she said, then stopped herself, lips pressing thin. Eliza looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" Mrs. Hale didn't face her. "It means you finish cleaning and keep your head down." Her voice hardened again, the softness gone. "This house runs on order, not fear." Eliza held her gaze for a second longer, then dropped it, picking up another shard. "Yes, ma'am," she said, though the words felt hollow. Night came slow and heavy. The house dimmed into shadows that stretched longer than they should. Eliza lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, eyes open, waiting. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt full, like something sat inside it, watching her wait. She turned onto her side, pulling the thin blanket tighter. "Nothing's there," she whispered to herself. Nothing. The words didn't settle. They floated. Then it came. Above her. A step. Slow. Measured. Directly over her head. Eliza froze. Another step followed, dragging slightly this time, like weight shifting unevenly. She sat up fast, heart pounding. "No," she said under her breath. "Not again." The footsteps continued, moving across the ceiling, back and forth, never stopping, never hurrying. She pushed the blanket aside and stood, feet hitting the floor hard. "I'm not staying here," she muttered. She grabbed the door and pulled it open. The hallway upstairs was darker, quieter, colder. The sound stopped the moment she stepped into it. Eliza looked around, eyes wide. "Come on," she said, voice low but firm. "If you're here, don't hide." No answer. She took a step forward. The floor creaked beneath her, the only sound left. Then, slowly, a door at the far end of the hall began to open. No hand touched it. No wind pushed it. It just moved. Inch by inch. Eliza's breath caught. "Stop," she whispered, though she didn't move away. The door opened fully, revealing a dark room beyond. She walked toward it, slow and careful, each step heavier than the last. "This isn't real," she said, but her voice didn't believe it. She reached the doorway and stood still for a moment before stepping inside. The room was empty. Bare walls. Cold air. Nothing living. Her eyes scanned the floor, the corners, the ceiling. Then she saw it. Near the center of the room, resting alone on the worn boards. A badge. Old. Rusted. Not polished like the one the sheriff wore. This one looked forgotten. Abandoned. Eliza stepped closer and bent down, picking it up with careful fingers. The metal felt colder than it should. She turned it over slowly, reading the faint name scratched into its surface. Her brow tightened. "That's not his," she whispered. Behind her, faint and distant, the sound of a single footstep echoed once more. The footstep behind her did not echo twice. It landed once, heavy and certain, then vanished like it had never touched the floor. Eliza turned fast, the badge still clutched in her hand, her breath sharp and uneven. The room behind her stood empty, the doorway open, the hallway beyond it still and dark. "Stop doing that," she said under her breath, her voice low but firm. No answer came. The silence felt thicker now, like it had weight. She looked down at the badge again, rubbing her thumb across the rusted edge. "You want me to see this," she whispered. "Fine. I see it." She stepped out of the room and moved quickly down the hall, her grip tightening around the metal as if it might disappear if she let go. The house felt different now. Not quiet. Not empty. Just waiting. She didn't stop until she reached the main room where the sheriff stood near the window, his back turned, shoulders stiff. He didn't look surprised when she walked in. "You walk heavy for someone who claims to hear everything," he said without turning. Eliza didn't slow down. "I found something." He sighed, like he already knew what she would say. "You always do." She stepped closer and held the badge up. This was upstairs. The sheriff turned then, slow and deliberate, his eyes landing on the badge for just a second before something tight flickered across his face. He stepped forward quickly and grabbed it from her hand. "Where exactly?" he asked, his voice sharper now. "In a room that opens on its own," Eliza said. "In a house where footsteps follow me." He ignored that. "Did you see anything else?" "No," she said, then paused. "Just heard him." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You didn't see a man? No, a shadow? No, then you didn't see anything." He turned away, gripping the badge too hard. "That's not yours," Eliza said. The sheriff stopped. "It doesn't need to be." "It's not new," she pressed. "It's old. Rusted. Someone wore it." He faced her again, ice colder now. "Every badge was worn by someone." "Not like this," she said. "This one feels buried." The word hung between them. The sheriff's grip tightened again. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then tell me," she shot back. "Whose is it?" Before he could answer, Mrs. Hale stepped into the room, her presence cutting through the tension like a blade. Her eyes moved from Eliza to the badge in the sheriff's hand. "Where did that come from?" she asked quietly. Eliza didn't hesitate. "Upstairs." Mrs. Hale's face stilled. "Throw it away," she said, almost too quickly. Eliza frowned. "Why?" "Because it's nothing," Mrs. Hale replied, her voice steady but thin. "Old junk. Left behind." "It doesn't feel like junk," Eliza said. "It feels like someone wants it found." The sheriff stepped between them. "That's enough." "No," Eliza said, her voice rising now. "It's not enough. I hear him. I feel him. And now I have this." She pointed at the badge. "Someone stayed in this house. Someone didn't leave." Mrs. Hale's hands trembled slightly at her sides. "You're letting your mind run wild," she said. Eliza shook her head. "No. I'm listening." The sheriff's voice dropped low. "Stop." "Or what?" she fired back. "You'll tell me I'm crazy? You'll tell me it's nothing?" He stepped closer, his presence pressing hard against her space. "I said stop." The room went still again. No one spoke for a moment. Then, faint and soft, the whisper returned. "Don't let them bury me again." Eliza froze. Her eyes widened slightly. "Did you hear that?" she asked, looking between them. The sheriff didn't answer. Mrs. Hale didn't move. "He said it again," Eliza whispered. "He said don't let them bury him." The sheriff's face darkened. "There is no he." "Then who's talking to me?" she demanded. Mrs. Hale stepped back slowly, her voice barely holding. "No one is talking to you." "That's a lie," Eliza said. "This whole place is lying." The air shifted suddenly, a cold rush moving through the room. A door somewhere in the house slammed hard, the sound echoing sharp and violent. Eliza flinched but didn't step back. The sheriff did, just slightly. The footsteps came again. Not behind her this time. Not above. Around her. Slow. Circling. Measured. Like something was walking the edge of the room, keeping pace with her breathing. Eliza turned her head slightly, following the sound, her eyes searching the empty space. "You hear that now?" she asked, her voice tight. The sheriff said nothing. Mrs. Hale's lips parted but no words came out. The steps continued, steady and close, never stopping, never showing. Eliza stood in the center of it, her chest rising and falling, her hands clenched. "He's not gone," she said quietly. "He's still here." The last step landed just behind her, closer than before, heavy enough to feel through the floor. Eliza didn't turn this time. She just stood still, staring ahead, as the silence closed in around them again. The footsteps did not come again after that last one, but the silence they left behind felt heavier than before. Eliza stood still in the center of the room, listening to nothing that still felt alive. The sheriff had already walked out without a word. Mrs. Hale followed him a moment later, but not before glancing once at Eliza like she had become a problem that could no longer be ignored. Now Eliza was alone again, but not empty. The house had changed shape around her. She could feel it. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she moved through the lower storage rooms where old records were kept, places no one visited unless they were forced to. Dust clung to her fingers as she pulled open drawers, one after another. "If you're here," she whispered to herself, "you have to be somewhere on paper." Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through old ledgers, names written and crossed out, dates blurred by time. Nothing made sense at first. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Then she found it. A ledger tucked deeper than the rest, hidden behind newer records like it had been pushed away on purpose. Eliza pulled it out slowly and placed it on the table. The cover was older, darker, stained at the edges. She opened it carefully. The first pages were standard, supplies, wages, land notes. Then the names began to thin out. Lines scratched through some entries so hard the paper tore. And then one name repeated. Over and over. Scratched. Rewritten. Erased again. Eliza leaned closer. "What is this?" she whispered. The name wasn't clear at first, but it kept returning, always in the same hand, always in the same violent mark. Someone didn't want it seen. Behind her, a voice spoke suddenly. "You shouldn't be here." Eliza turned fast. A young man stood in the doorway, holding a lantern. He looked nervous, like he had already made a mistake by coming. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said quickly. Who are you?" Eliza interrupted. He hesitated. Stable hand. She didn't relax. "Why are you following me?" "I'm not," he said. Then added quietly, "But I know what you're looking at." Eliza turned the ledger toward him. "This name. Who is it?" The boy shook his head immediately. "Don't say it too loud." "Why?" she pressed. He stepped inside slowly, lowering his voice. "Because they buried him wrong." The words hit harder than she expected. Eliza frowned. "Buried?" The boy nodded once. "Out past the well. Before the sheriff, you see now." Eliza's grip tightened. There was another sheriff? He looked down. There was. She stared at him. What happened to him? The boy didn't answer right away. He shifted his weight, eyes flicking toward the hallway as if the house itself might be listening. "He asked questions," he said finally. "About land. About orders. About people disappearing." Eliza's voice dropped. "And?" The boy swallowed. "And he didn't stop." Silence filled the room for a moment. Then Eliza asked, softer now, "So they removed him?" The boy didn't correct her. That was answer enough. She looked back at the ledger. The scratched name suddenly felt heavier, like it was pressing into the page from the other side. "They erased him," she said quietly. The boy nodded once. "They tried to." A faint sound crept through the walls then. Not footsteps this time. A low drag. Like something moving slowly under the floorboards. Eliza froze. The boy did too. "Do you hear that?" she asked. He shook his head quickly. "No. No, I don't hear anything." But his face told a different story. The sound grew softer, then stopped completely, like it had paused just beneath them. Eliza looked down at the ledger again. The ink on the repeated name seemed darker now, almost fresh. "He's not gone," she whispered. The boy stepped back slightly. "You need to stop reading that." "Why?" she asked. He hesitated. "Because once you know, you don't stop hearing it." A sudden knock came from the far end of the house. Sharp. Once. Then again. Eliza turned her head. The boy backed toward the door. "That's not me," he said quickly. "I didn't do that." Another knock. Louder this time. The kind that didn't ask permission. The kind that expected response. Eliza closed the ledger slowly. "Someone's inside the walls," she said. The boy shook his head again, panicked now. "No one is inside the walls." Then a whisper slipped through the room, thin and close. "You found it." Eliza went still. The boy's face drained of color. "I have to go," he said quickly, already moving backward. Eliza didn't stop him. She was listening now, not to him, but to the space between the walls, where the voice seemed to settle like dust. The whisper came again, clearer this time. "Don't stop now." Eliza placed her hand flat on the ledger, feeling its weight, its history, its refusal to disappear. The house around her didn't feel silent anymore. It felt awake. And somewhere beneath it, something kept breathing through old names that no one wanted spoken. Eliza was already moving before she fully understood why. The whisper didn't fade this time. It stayed with her, threaded into the walls, into her steps, into the way her chest refused to settle. "Don't stop now." It wasn't coming from behind her anymore. It felt like it was coming from ahead, pulling her forward. She left the ledger behind without closing it. The boy called after her once, but she didn't answer. He didn't follow. No one did. The house seemed to let her go too easily, like it had already decided where she was going. Outside, the air was colder than it should have been. Eliza stepped off the porch and didn't look back. Her feet carried her across the uneven ground without hesitation. The path wasn't clear, but she still knew it. Everyone did. No one spoke about it, but they all avoided it. The well. She reached it faster than she expected. It sat away from the house, half hidden by dead grass and old fence posts that leaned like tired bodies. A wooden cover sat over the opening, nailed down once, then loosened over time. Eliza stopped in front of it, breathing hard. "Why here?" she whispered. A voice answered from behind her. "Because that's where it ended." Eliza turned sharply. The stable boy stood a few feet away, hesitant, like he had followed against his own will. "I told you to stay back," she said. He shook his head. "You shouldn't be here alone." "I'm not alone," she said, then paused. "Not anymore." He looked at the well and swallowed. "Don't open it." Eliza stepped closer. "Why not?" He hesitated too long. "Because that's where they dropped him." The words didn't land like information. They landed like weight. Eliza stared at the wooden cover. "Alive?" she asked, her voice lower now. The boy didn't answer. That silence said more than anything else. A sudden wind moved across the field, though the air had been still moments before. The wooden cover creaked softly. Eliza stepped forward and placed her hand on it. It felt colder than wood should feel. "Are you there?" she asked quietly. A knock came from inside the well. Not loud. Not frantic. Just once. Careful. Like something remembering how to ask for help. The boy stepped back immediately. "No," he said. "No, that's not possible." Eliza didn't move her hand. "You hear that?" It wasn't a question. Another knock came. Softer this time. But closer. The sheriff's voice cut through the air before either of them could move. "Step away from it." Eliza turned slowly. The sheriff stood near the edge of the path, gun hanging low but present, eyes locked on the well. "You shouldn't be here," he said again, but this time it sounded less like an order and more like pressure. Eliza didn't move. "He's inside," she said. The sheriff shook his head once. "There's nothing inside." "Then why is it knocking?" she shot back. The sheriff stepped closer. "Because you're hearing things that aren't there." Eliza laughed once, sharp and without humor. "That's what they always say." The boy looked between them, panicked. I swear I heard it too, he said quickly. The sheriff turned his head slightly. Don't start. The boy backed up immediately, silenced. Eliza kept her hand on the wood. Say it, she said to the sheriff. Tell me what happened here. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Nothing happened here. That's a lie, she said. Something is under this ground. The sheriff stepped closer, voice lowering. You don't open that. Why? Eliza asked. Because you don't understand what it does, he said. Another knock came. Harder this time. The wood shifted slightly under Eliza's hand. The sheriff raised his voice now. Step away. Eliza didn't. He's still alive, she said, quieter now, almost certain. The sheriff froze for a fraction of a second. That was enough. From inside the well, a voice came. Thin. Broken. But real. Help me. Eliza's breath caught. The boy stumbled back fully now, shaking his head. No, 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 he repeated. The sheriff's face changed, just for a moment. Not fear. Something worse. Recognition. Eliza looked at him. You heard that before, she said. It wasn't a question. The sheriff didn't answer. The wind picked up again, circling them now, and the well cover creaked louder under Eliza's hand, like something beneath it had shifted closer to the surface. And the voice came again, clearer than before. Don't leave me here. Eliza's fingers tightened on the wood as the silence around them finally stopped pretending to be empty. The second Eliza heard the voice clearly, something inside her stopped obeying fear. The well was still under her hand, but now it felt less like wood and more like a barrier holding back a living thing. Don't leave me here. The words didn't fade. They stuck in the air like a wound that wouldn't close. The sheriff stepped closer, slower now, like he was trying to control the situation by force of presence alone. Step away from it, he said again, but his voice wasn't as steady as before. Eliza didn't look at him. You heard him, she said quietly. The boy stood behind them both, frozen, shaking his head like he was trying to erase what he heard. No, he whispered. No, I didn't. Another sound came from the well. Not a knock this time. A scrape. Slow. Like something dragging itself against stone. Eliza's hand tightened on the cover. He's down there, she said. The sheriff's jaw clenched. There's nothing down there. Eliza finally looked at him. Then why is it answering me? The sheriff moved fast then, grabbing her wrist and pulling her back. Enough, he snapped. Eliza struggled, pulling free immediately. Don't touch me, she said, breathing hard. The boy stepped further back, eyes wide. The wind around them picked up again, sharper now, almost circling. Then the voices changed. Not just one anymore. Fragments began slipping through the air. Don't let them take me. They said it was over. I can't breathe. Eliza staggered slightly. Her hand went to her head. Stop, she said under her breath, but it wasn't clear who she was speaking to. The sheriff looked around now, more alert. This is in your head, he said quickly. All of it. Eliza shook her head hard. No, she said. It's in the ground. The boy suddenly spoke, voice breaking. I hear it too. The sheriff snapped his head toward him. No, you don't. The boy stepped forward slightly, desperate. I do. I swear I do. The sheriff stared at him like he'd crossed a line he couldn't come back from. Stop talking. Eliza pressed her palm back onto the well cover. Immediately, the voices sharpened. Louder. Closer. Not random anymore. Structured. Like memory forcing itself into sound. A single voice rose through it all. You said I would be safe. Eliza froze completely. The sheriff's face tightened. Stop listening, he said, but it sounded weaker now. Eliza turned her head slowly toward him. "You knew him," she said. It wasn't a question. The sheriff didn't answer. That silence was enough. Mrs. Hale appeared behind them suddenly, stepping into the edge of the field like she had been standing just out of sight the whole time. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Her eyes landed on the well immediately. Her expression changed. Just slightly. But enough. Eliza saw it. "You know too," she said. Mrs. Hale's voice sharpened. "Don't start this." Eliza stepped back from the well, finally turning toward her fully. "He's in there," she said again. "And you all hear him." Mrs. Hale shook her head fast. "There's nothing in that hole." Then the voice came again. Stronger this time. Clear enough to cut through denial. They watched. Mrs. Hale went still. The sheriff didn't move. The boy whispered, "Oh my God." Eliza pointed at the sheriff. "You were there." The sheriff's voice dropped. "Stop." "You were there," she repeated. "When they buried him." Mrs. Hale snapped, "Enough." But the wind changed again. And this time, it wasn't wind. It was pressure. Like something inside the well had shifted upward. Eliza leaned forward slightly. "Show me," she said quietly. The sheriff stepped toward her instantly. No, but it was too late. A sound rose from the well that wasn't human and wasn't air. It was memory forced into noise. And inside it, a final phrase broke through clearly. "They took my voice." Eliza's eyes filled with something she didn't understand yet. Anger or grief or both. She looked at them all. "You didn't just bury a man," she said. "You buried the truth with him." No one answered. Because now the well wasn't silent anymore. It was listening back. The moment the well stopped speaking, the world didn't go quiet. It went wrong. The air around Eliza felt thinner, like something had been pulled out of it and left a gap behind. The sheriff didn't move, Mrs. Hale didn't blink, and the boy looked like he wanted to run but had forgotten how. Eliza stayed close to the well, her hand still hovering over the wood. "It remembers," she said softly. The sheriff's voice came fast. "Nothing remembers anything. It's a hole in the ground." Eliza shook her head. "No. It's not just a hole." Mrs. Hale stepped forward, her voice low and sharp. "You're going to stop this right now." Eliza turned slowly. "Or what?" she asked. That was when the air changed again. Not wind. Not sound. Something deeper. Like the ground itself shifted under memory. And then it began. The world around them didn't disappear, but it bent. The field, the house in the distance, the sky above it all, still there, but no longer steady. Eliza blinked and suddenly she wasn't standing at the well anymore. She was standing in it. Not physically. But inside the moment. The sheriff was younger now. His voice wasn't hardened yet. He stood with two other men near the same ground, though it looked fresher, newly dug. Mrs. Hale was there too, her face tighter, sharper, but the same eyes. Eliza watched without understanding at first, then felt it settle in her bones. "This isn't real," she whispered. But it kept going anyway. The younger sheriff spoke first. "He won't stop asking questions." One of the men answered, then he stops asking. Mrs. Hale stood behind them, silent for a moment too long before speaking. "We can't have him turning people." The sheriff nodded once. "Then we handle it clean." Eliza felt something cold in her chest. "No," she said, stepping forward into the memory. "Stop." No one heard her. She wasn't in their time. She was inside it. The boy beside her now was shaking. "What is this?" he asked. But his voice didn't reach them either. The past didn't care who was watching. The man they were talking about was brought forward then. Not struggling. Not loud. Just tired. His hands were bound, his face bruised but steady. He looked at the sheriff directly. "You're making a mistake," the man said. The younger sheriff didn't answer. Mrs. Hale looked away. Eliza stepped closer, breath-breaking. "That's him," she whispered. The man turned his head slightly, like he almost heard her. That small moment made her stomach drop. "He can hear me," she said. The sheriff in the memory finally spoke. "You should have stayed quiet." The man shook his head slowly. "Quiet doesn't fix what you're doing." One of the men grabbed him. The ground shifted again. Eliza moved forward. "Don't," she said. "Don't do this." Her voice rose. "Stop it." But it was already happening. The man was forced down. Not screaming. Not fighting. Just looking at them like he already understood what kind of world this was. Mrs. Hale's voice from the past was barely audible. "It has to look final." The sheriff nodded once. "It will." Eliza backed away, shaking her head hard. "No," she whispered. "This isn't justice." The boy grabbed her arm. "We have to go," he said, panicked. "We shouldn't see this." Eliza pulled away. "I need to see it." The ground opened in her vision. Not visually at first, but in sound. A hollow space being forced open. The man's voice came one last time. "You can't bury truth." Then silence. Not peaceful silence. Final silence. Eliza stumbled backward as the memory snapped back around them. The field returned. The well returned. The sheriff, Mrs. Hale, the boy all standing still like they had never moved. But something in Eliza had changed. She looked at the sheriff slowly. "You didn't just bury him," she said. Her voice was steady now. "You buried him alive." The sheriff didn't answer. Mrs. Hale spoke instead, quieter than before. "It was not supposed to stay." Eliza turned to her. "But it did." The boy whispered, "It's still here." The wind rose again, but now it carried something else with it. Not sound. Not memory. Presence. And from inside the well, deep beneath them, the voice came one more time. "I remember all of you." Eliza closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again, staring straight at the people who thought it was over. But now she knew. It had never stayed buried. The words from the well didn't fade. They stayed in the air like smoke that refused to clear. "I remember all of you." Eliza stood still, breathing slow, her eyes locked on the sheriff. Something inside her had stopped shaking. It wasn't calm. It was decision. The sheriff finally spoke, voice tight. "This is over." Eliza shook her head once. "No. It's not." Mrs. Hale stepped closer, urgency rising in her tone. "You don't understand what you're doing." Eliza looked at her. "I understand enough." The boy stayed behind them, silent now, like he was afraid even breathing might make things worse. Eliza pointed toward the well. "He was alive when you buried him." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You don't know that." "I heard him," she shot back. "I felt him." Mrs. Hale snapped, "Feelings don't change facts." Eliza turned toward her fully. "Then show me the facts." Silence hit again, heavier this time. The sheriff stepped forward slightly. "You walk away from this," he said. "Right now." Eliza laughed once, sharp and dry. "Or what?" she asked. "You'll silence me too?" That made him pause. Just for a second. Mrs. Hale spoke softer now, but it carried weight. "You're opening something that was closed for a reason." Eliza didn't look away. "It wasn't closed," she said. "It was buried." The sheriff's voice dropped lower. "Some things stay buried for survival." Eliza nodded slowly. "Whose survival?" No one answered. The wind moved again, but now it felt different. Less like nature. More like pressure building under everything. Eliza took a step toward the well. The sheriff moved immediately to block her. "Don't," he said. She stopped, inches from him. "Move," she said. Their eyes locked. Mrs. Hale's voice cracked slightly. "Eliza, listen to me." "No," Eliza interrupted. "You listen." She pointed between them. "You all made a choice. And now you want it to stay hidden forever." The boy finally spoke, voice small. "They said it had to be done." Eliza turned to him. "Who said?" He didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. Eliza turned back to the sheriff. "You owe him," she said. The sheriff's face hardened. "I don't owe a dead man anything." Eliza stepped closer, her voice dropping. "He wasn't dead when you put him there." That landed differently. The sheriff didn't respond right away. Mrs. Hale looked away for the first time. That small movement cracked something open in the air. Eliza saw it. "You remember," she said quietly. Mrs. Hale shook her head fast. "Stop." Eliza didn't stop. "You were there." The sheriff grabbed her arm suddenly. "Enough." Eliza didn't flinch. She looked down at his hand, then back at his face. "Let go," she said. He didn't. "You don't walk into this," he said through clenched teeth. "You don't open what we buried." Eliza's voice stayed even. "You don't get to decide what stays hidden." A beat of silence. Then she pulled her arm free. The boy took a step back. "This is going bad," he whispered. No one listened to him. Eliza turned toward Mrs. Hale again. "You said survival," she said. "Was it yours? Or his?" Mrs. Hale's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. That was the first real crack. The wind rose again, circling them harder now. The well cover creaked on its own, like something underneath had shifted closer. Eliza stepped toward it again. The sheriff raised his voice. "If you open that, there's no coming back." Eliza didn't look at him. "There already isn't." Mrs. Hale finally spoke, broken and low. "We didn't have a choice." Eliza stopped. Slowly turned. "You always have a choice." That sentence hung there longer than anything else. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then, from deep below, the voice came again. Not pleading this time. Not broken. Just certain. Not yours to bury. Eliza placed her hand back on the wood. And this time, no one stopped her. Eliza didn't speak after the voice came again. She only pressed her hand harder against the well cover, like she was holding down something that was trying to rise. The wood creaked under her palm, old nails shifting slightly, as if even the structure was tired of keeping secrets. The sheriff moved first. Fast. "Move away," he snapped, stepping in closer. Eliza didn't look at him. No, Mrs. Hale followed, her voice breaking now. "Eliza, stop this before it goes too far." Eliza finally turned her head. "It's already too far." The boy stood frozen behind them, whispering to himself, "This isn't right, this isn't right." The sheriff grabbed Eliza's arm again, harder this time. "I said move." Eliza pulled back sharply. "And I said no." Their eyes locked, tension snapping tight between them. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Eliza spoke quietly. "You're afraid of what's under here." The sheriff's jaw clenched. "There's nothing under there." Eliza nodded once. "Then open it." That hit harder than expected. The sheriff hesitated just a fraction. Mrs. Hale noticed. "Don't you dare," she said quickly, stepping forward. Eliza looked at her. "You know what's under it too." Mrs. Hale's face tightened. "Stop saying that." Eliza's voice dropped. "You were there." Silence broke everything for a second. Even the wind seemed unsure. The boy took another step back, shaking his head. "I didn't see anything," he whispered, like saying it enough times might make it true. Eliza turned back to the well. "Open it," she said again. The sheriff shook his head hard. No. Eliza stepped closer to him, voice steady. "Then I will." That was the moment things shifted. The sheriff moved fast, grabbing her again, but this time Eliza didn't just pull away. She shoved him back. Not strong enough to throw him, but enough to make him stumble. Mrs. Hale gasped. "Stop," she shouted. Eliza didn't stop. The boy rushed forward instinctively. "Don't do this," he said, panic rising. Eliza looked at him briefly. "Then help me." He froze. That choice hung in his face, heavy and impossible. The sheriff steadied himself, anger rising now. "You don't understand what happens if that opens." Eliza faced him fully. "Then explain it." He didn't answer. That silence told her everything. Eliza bent down and grabbed the edge of the wooden cover with both hands. The nails groaned under the pressure. Mrs. Hale rushed forward again. "No," she screamed. But she stopped halfway, like something inside her body refused to cross that line. The sheriff stepped forward too, voice rising. "If you open that, you're not walking away from it." Eliza looked up at him, breath steady. "I'm already not walking away from it." And then she pulled. The wood shifted slightly. A deep, hollow sound came from inside the well, like something responding to pressure after being silent too long. The boy stumbled back again, eyes wide. "I hear it," he said, shaking. "I hear it now." The sheriff lunged forward, grabbing the cover too. "Stop," he yelled. For the first time, panic broke through his control. Eliza held on. "You don't get to bury him again," she said through clenched teeth. Mrs. Hale stood frozen, watching both of them struggle over it like the past itself was being dragged upward between their hands. The wind surged suddenly, circling them harder. Dust lifted off the ground. The house in the distance felt further away, like it was retreating. From inside the well came a sound again. Not a voice yet. A breath. Deep. Real. Alive. The boy whispered, "It's him." The sheriff heard it too. His grip faltered for a split second. That was all Eliza needed. She pulled harder. One nail snapped. Then another. The wood shifted again, opening just enough for darkness beneath to breathe outward. A smell rose first. Cold. Old. Heavy with earth and time. Mrs. Hale covered her mouth, stepping back fully now. "Oh my God," she whispered. Eliza didn't stop. "Finish it," she said quietly, not to them, but to herself. And from inside the opening, a final sound rose up. Not a scream. Not a whisper. A name trying to remember itself. The sheriff stared into the gap forming in the wood, and for the first time, he didn't speak at all. The moment the opening widened, the air changed completely. It wasn't just colder. It felt heavier, like something deep underground had finally noticed it was no longer alone. Eliza kept pulling, her hands tight on the broken wood, while the sheriff's grip started to fail beside her. Mrs. Hale stood frozen a few steps back, shaking her head like she could undo what was already happening. "Stop," the sheriff said again, but his voice didn't carry the same power anymore. It sounded thin. Eliza didn't look at him. "You already stopped him once," she said quietly. The boy stood behind them all, whispering, "I hear breathing. I hear breathing," over and over, like he was trying to convince himself it wasn't real. Another nail snapped. The cover shifted more, revealing a narrow darkness beneath. The smell rose stronger now, thick and wrong, like earth that had never been allowed to settle. Mrs. Hale stepped back again, covering her mouth. "This wasn't supposed to stay," she said, voice breaking. Eliza finally looked at her. But it did. The sheriff suddenly let go with one hand and reached toward Eliza. "Enough," he snapped, grabbing her shoulder. Eliza twisted free immediately. "No," she said, sharper now. "Not enough." The sheriff's face tightened. "You don't understand what you're pulling up." Eliza nodded once. "Then show me." That silence hit harder than anything else. The opening widened again under Eliza's pull. Now there was enough space to see into it, not fully, but enough for darkness to feel like it had depth. The boy took another step back. "Something's down there," he whispered. "Something is actually down there." His voice cracked at the end. The sheriff looked down into the gap for the first time. That was the mistake. His expression changed.